The previous segment highlighted the implications of an attack that has marked Russia's strategic energy project with a serious risk tag. Security costs for investors are rising, and construction schedules might face significant revisions. This turbulent backdrop casts a shadow over operations at Luga, while Sizon emerges as another crucial player in the fuel supply chain. Yet, what if this seemingly routine operation was vital to Russia's war capacity? The Sizon refinery, despite its modest size, boasts a design capacity of 8.5 million tons annually. This facility feeds the Volga Basin, crucial for maintaining fuel access across numerous cities. Effectively, it accounts for about 3.08% of the nation's total refining capabilities. On the surface, this may seem minor, but the ripple effects are alarming. Imagine a single railway delay spiraling out of control, setting in motion a disastrous chain reaction across the region. The psychology of waiting for supplies can fuel panic. What happens when cities reliant on swift deliveries suddenly face delays, triggering a local crisis? The key question looms: how long before the ramifications of such disruptions impact the entire fuel network? A shortfall here risks not just Samara but threatens large swathes of the domestic market. A minor hiccup in refineries could decimate logistical operations. The focus shifts from economic metrics to the frantic urgency of securing deliveries. With every passing moment, potential shortages create unease among consumers while government plans frantically recalibrate priorities to ensure domestic supply stability. As the details unravel, the stakes elevate further. What role do naphtha and jet fuel play in the overarching strategy? Integral to the military supply chain, these resources are not merely products, they're lifelines. The shipping routes extend far beyond, tracing paths to Europe and Asia. But, with risks now heightened, how will transportation costs and delivery timelines be affected? Increasing shipping risks will spiral, reshaping market dynamics in ways that lead to explosive prices, all driven by uncertainty. What if one significant delay shifts buyer preferences and forces Russia to confront dwindling market confidence? This turbulence can erode the state's bargaining power. The implications hit hard. The very essence of energy strategy hangs in the balance as investment dims, leading to a vicious cycle. Will this chain of events endlessly repeat, culminating in a financial crisis for Russia's energy sector? The clock ticks relentlessly toward this catastrophic turning point. What measures will be put in place to mitigate the fallout? As we stand on the brink, the potential for disaster looms ever larger. The recent attacks on two critical Russian facilities have sent shockwaves through the nation's energy sector. On August 24, Ukraine launched a daring strike on the UST Luga Sea terminal and the Syzran refinery, aiming to cripple Russia's war machine by cutting off vital fuel and gas supplies. This simultaneous assault not only disrupted operations but also put 3.08% of Russia's total oil production at risk. How did Ukraine pull off such a coordinated operation from over 1,000 kilometers away? As flames engulfed UST Luga, the heart of Russia's logistics on the Baltic Sea, the implications were staggering. This port is not just a hub, it's a lifeline for energy flows, processing millions of tons of gas condensate annually. The attack raised alarms about rising costs and risks associated with Russia's shadow fleet. What happens when a key facility like this faces even a temporary shutdown? The answer is a domino effect that could cripple logistics and shipping routes, leading to a financial crisis. But the impact doesn't stop there. The Syzran refinery, though smaller, plays a crucial role in supplying fuel across the Volga Basin. It accounts for a significant portion of Russia's refining capacity. A disruption here could trigger a ripple effect, causing delays and panic buying across cities reliant on its output. As the supply chain falters, will the Russian government prioritize domestic needs over exports? The stakes are high. Naphtha and jet fuel, essential for military operations, are now at risk, with shipping routes extending to Europe and Asia. Any increase in transportation costs could shift market dynamics. As uncertainty looms, buyers may turn to alternative suppliers, further eroding Russia's market share. What if this cycle of disruption continues? The psychological impact on the market is profound. A week of downtime can lead to skyrocketing freight and insurance costs, creating a climate of fear and hesitation among buyers. If this trend persists, it could lead to a permanent loss of revenue, weakening the very foundation of Russia's energy strategy. As the dust settles, the question remains, how will Russia respond to these unprecedented attacks? With rising security premiums and disrupted cash flow, the government faces tough decisions. Will they be able to maintain their energy dominance, or will these strikes mark the beginning of a downward spiral? The future of Russia's energy sector hangs in the balance, and the world is watching closely. Building on the tension from previous attacks, the drone waves are not just eroding processing capacity, they're directly undermining shipment security. Each moment brings more chaos, stretching repair cycles and multiplying costs. But there's a catch: these spiraling expenses lead to new calls for security investments. Imagine a world where military needs collide with social stability, igniting public discontent. How long can this tension simmer before it boils over? As frustrations mount, Russian decision-makers face a burning choice: protect external revenues or maintain peace at home. As they lean toward prioritizing domestic supply, they inadvertently send ripples through foreign markets, tarnishing their reputation and making financial resources harder to come by. The timing of the strikes on Ust-Luga and Syzran revealed weaknesses in Russian air defenses, exposing vulnerabilities that the Kremlin is desperate to hide. The night of the assaults lit up with alarms across multiple regions, throwing resource deployment into disarray. The inability of short-range defenses to manage the onslaught revealed gaping holes in Russia's protective measures. Can these failures spark a renewed debate over the efficacy of their defense systems, and how will that affect their future? As public and military pressures collide, the landscape of Russian energy security grows perilously fragile. With the stakes raised, every delay in repair work not only emboldens adversaries but also cripples the economic foundations of the state. An exhaustive strain on repair funds means that the Russian military's operational capacity starts to slip. Could this erosion of capability give Ukraine a pivotal edge in ongoing confrontations? The shadow of uncertainty looms larger, demanding more from every aspect of Russian logistics and defense. As the losses mount, the specter of diminishing foreign investment looms large. Expensive security measures become the norm as markets react to potential pitfalls. What happens when every construction and operation period is soaked in fear? Deferred investments might soon lead to irreversible vulnerabilities. Can Russia afford to be perceived as a soft target? As tension escalates, the Kremlin's next moves will dictate not just military outcomes, but the very fabric of its economy. In the intricate dance of military strategy and economic survival, Ukraine's night raids reveal a new narrative. By disrupting capacity, they force Russia to confront the devastating implications for both energy exports and internal stability. As Moscow struggles to balance its priorities, the stage for future conflict is set. Will Russia pivot to secure its domestic supply, or will the fading reputation in global markets compel them to rethink their strategy? The ticking clock of energy insecurity is about to hit a critical breakpoint. The situation escalated dramatically in the early hours of August 24. In a coordinated strike, Ukraine targeted two key facilities in Russia, plunging the nation into chaos. The Ust-Luga Sea Terminal and Syzran refinery were severely hit. This wasn't just a tactical operation, it was a strategic blow aimed at crippling Russia's energy supply. What happens when both legs supporting a giant are knocked out? The consequences ripple through the economy. With 3.08% of Russia's total oil production jeopardized, panic set in. Smoke billowed from the once secure facilities as alarms blared in the distance. Russian officials claimed they shot down over 95 drones, but blackened skies tell a different story. How long can the Kremlin maintain the illusion of dominance while chaos unfolds? The world watched, stunned, as flames lit up the night. As the dust settles, a more profound question emerges: how could Ukraine pull off such a double strike? Coordinated with precision, Ukraine's military acted with a strength that rattled the very foundations of Russia's energy infrastructure. The attacks threatened to cut off 45 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually. Imagine the shockwaves reverberating across an economy reliant on these supplies. What comes next in this deadly chess game? The implications are staggering. With Ust-Luga being a critical hub on the Baltic Sea, the fear of losing control over fuel exports is tangible. The facility's annual output had reached a staggering 6.9 million tons. Now, just a single attack could send shockwaves through logistics and financial markets. As Russian officials scramble to recalibrate, the long-term effects of these losses point to a tightening grip on the domestic supply chain. Is this the beginning of a cascade of failures? But the attack on Syzran adds another layer of complexity. It delivers almost 3.08% of Russia's refining capacity. Every hour of disruption intensifies the risk of panic buying and supply shortages. With consumers waiting in ever-increasing lines, uncertainty breeds chaos. Will Russia be able to stabilize its markets, or will the public's desperation trigger a crisis? Now, the stage is set for unexpected twists. As repairs begin, the looming challenge of deliverables and the urgent need for upgrades complicate responses. How will delays in output affect operational budgets and strategy? Each hour lost is another opportunity for uncertainty to breed discontent. With winter fast approaching, is Russia prepared for the consequences, or are their plans as fragile as a flickering flame in the dark? As stakeholders sift through the debris, attention shifts to the broader implications. For every moment spent in recovery, the shadow of declining revenues darkens the future. Yet amid the struggle for recovery lies a startling truth: this attack marked a pivotal turning point. With two critical nodes severed, the delicate balance of supply and demand hangs in the balance. Will Russia's energy architecture survive, or is this the beginning of the end for its ambitions on the global stage? The pressure is on, and time ticks mercilessly onward. The previous segment highlighted the precarious state of Russia's energy infrastructure following simultaneous attacks on two critical facilities. With repairs delayed and operations running at partial capacity, the vulnerabilities are palpable. As the holiday season approaches, the stakes are higher than ever. Now, imagine the tension in the air as negotiations unfold. Vulnerability translates into demands for discounts at the negotiation table. If these requests are granted, revenue losses spiral. If denied, loading delays become the norm. Either way, the pressure on balance sheets becomes a permanent fixture. The pace of repairs at the Syzran site hinges on the security situation, with access for technical teams tightly controlled. Logistics and security approvals dictate shift schedules, creating a bottleneck that stifles progress. The supply chain for spare parts, catalysts, and chemical consumables is fraught with complications. Railway allocations clash with tanker schedules, often invalidating assumptions about spare capacity. As these assumptions crumble, stock targets rise, leading to increased storage costs. Retail price caps clash with wholesale market signals, creating a volatile environment that influences station behavior. The minimum stock reflex strengthens, turning minor delays into potential crises. What happens when these delays coincide with the end of summer? The risk escalates, and the implications for the Russian military become stark. Jet fuel and diesel are the lifeblood of tactical and strategic mobility. Restrictions on jet fuel could curtail flight training and sorties, while pressure on diesel hampers ground logistics. Fluctuations in gasoline create tension within civilian-military shared infrastructure. As delivery risks to remote garrisons mount, storage costs inevitably rise. But what does this mean for operational quality in a prolonged conflict? As the need for working capital increases, other critical areas face cuts. Training and maintenance hours dwindle, leading to a decline in operational quality. This degradation heightens Russia's margin for error on the battlefield. The question looms: what is Ukraine truly targeting with these strategic strikes? The answer is clear: capacity erosion. As the situation unfolds, the ripple effects of these attacks will continue to reverberate through Russia's military and economic landscape. The stakes are high, and the consequences of these actions will shape the future of the conflict. Will Russia adapt, or will these vulnerabilities lead to a significant shift in the balance of power? The clock is ticking, and the world watches closely. The recent attacks on UST Luga and Syzran weren't merely tactical strikes, they illuminated the fragility of Russia's energy infrastructure. As flames flickered in the night, doubts crept into the minds of Russian officials. How vulnerable is their power? The UST Luga port is a critical hub along the Baltic Sea, infamous for being the lifeblood of Moscow's energy supply chain. It's here that Novatek processes a staggering 6.9 million tons of stabilized condensate each year, producing vital fuels that not only sustain civilian life but also support military operations. Why should the Kremlin feel alarmed? The port's capacity for naphtha jet fuel, lightweight and essential for military aviation, stands at an impressive 4.2 million tons, while an additional 1.05 million tons caters specifically to military needs. Imagine the repercussions of just a few days' shutdown. Logistical chaos could ensue, triggering an avalanche of increased costs and financial strain. Every cog in this delicate machinery is interconnected. With every delay, the risk escalates, heightening concerns over cash flows and emergency responses. The vulnerability of UST Luga has become a pivotal issue, fueling fears of a strategic collapse. Further compounding the turmoil, Syzran Refinery's role, though seemingly minor at just 3.08% of Russia's refining capacity, carries a weight far beyond its size. This facility is a linchpin in the Volga Basin, supplying nearby cities through a network of rail and pipelines. What happens when disruptions occur here? An increased supply distance creates delays, forcing supply chain crises and panic in urban centers reliant on this energy lifeline. Public anxiety swells with each delay, reminiscent of growing crowds lining up at gas stations. The question that echoes in the minds of everyday citizens is simple yet chilling: will there be enough fuel? As consumption patterns shift under pressure, will Russia's critical exports become collateral damage in the war? As domestic focus tightens, the balance between supplying home fronts and maintaining exports could tip dangerously. Moreover, with the geopolitical landscape shifting, the prospects for the export of liquefied natural gas linger in uncertainty. The UST Luga complex is projected to process a breathtaking 45 billion cubic meters of gas annually, crucial for Russia's market ambitions. The looming threat of attack labels this area with heightened risk, compelling investors to reconsider their commitments. Will this strip the Kremlin of its financial stability? As fires burn and smoke clears at these vital energy nodes, one thing becomes clear: the fabric of Russia's economic foundation is fraying. Each moment hosts a brewing storm, one that could redirect resources and reshape priorities. The real uncertainty looms not just over energy supplies but is deeply rooted in the psyche of a nation faced with existential threats. With mounting pressures and crumbling perceptions of safety, how long can this precarious situation last? What will be the ultimate cost of these assaults as they reverberate through Russia's disjointed supply chains? In a stunning display of military precision, two of Russia's most vital energy facilities were struck in a single night. On August 24, Ukraine's Independence Day, the Ukrainian army launched a coordinated attack on the UST Luga Sea terminal and the Syzran refinery. The objective? To cripple Russia's war machine by cutting off its fuel, gas, and financial lifelines. This audacious move severed critical nodes in Russia's energy defense, sending shockwaves through its port and fuel infrastructure. But how did Ukraine pull off such a daring operation from over 1,000 kilometers away? As flames engulfed the night sky over UST Luga and Syzran, the Kremlin scrambled to downplay the damage, claiming to have intercepted over 95 drones. Yet, the reality was starkly different. Fires raged, revealing the vulnerabilities in Russia's energy supply chain. The attacks put 3.08% of Russia's total oil production at risk and threatened to disrupt an annual natural gas flow of 45 billion cubic meters. The implications for the Russian economy were profound, but the question remained: how did Ukraine achieve such a feat? The Ukrainian military's success was attributed to meticulous coordination with the Defense Ministry's Intelligence Directorate and Special Operations units. This level of planning ensured that both facilities were targeted simultaneously, a tactical maneuver that left Russian defenses reeling. The images of destruction shattered the illusion of safety within Russia's borders, exposing the fragile links in its oil and gas supply chain. But why should Putin be worried? UST Luga is not just any port, it is a critical logistics hub on the Baltic Sea, processing millions of tons of fuel annually. The facility's shutdown, even temporarily, could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction affecting logistics, shipping routes, and ultimately, Russia's military capabilities. As the flames flickered, the stakes grew higher. Would this attack mark the beginning of a new phase in the conflict, one where Ukraine could strike at the heart of Russia's energy infrastructure? The Syzran refinery, while smaller, plays a crucial role in Russia's domestic fuel supply. It accounts for 3.08% of the country's refining capacity, a seemingly modest figure that belies its significance. Disruptions here could send ripples through the entire supply chain, leading to panic buying and logistical nightmares across the Volga Basin. As the reality of delivery times became the new battleground, the Kremlin faced a daunting challenge: how to maintain control over a crumbling energy infrastructure while managing public demand. With each passing moment, the pressure mounted. The attacks not only threatened immediate fuel supplies but also raised questions about the long-term viability of Russia's energy strategy. As uncertainty loomed, investors and insurers began to reassess their positions, leading to rising costs and potential losses. Would the Kremlin be able to stabilize its energy sector, or was this the beginning of a downward spiral that could cripple its economy? As the fires were extinguished and the smoke cleared, the reality of the situation set in. Technical repairs would take time, and the sanctions imposed on Russia made procuring necessary parts a slow and costly endeavor. Operating at partial capacity became the new norm, leaving the country vulnerable during peak demand periods. Would this vulnerability lead to concessions at the negotiation table, or would it embolden Ukraine to strike again? The aftermath of these attacks revealed a new pressure threshold on Russia's energy backbone. As nearby warehouses emptied, distant regions faced longer wait times, igniting panic and chaos. The Kremlin's focus shifted from exports to domestic supply, further straining its financial resources. In this high-stakes game, every decision could have far-reaching consequences. Would Russia's energy strategy survive this onslaught, or was it destined for collapse? As the dust settled, the world watched closely. The implications of these attacks extended beyond the battlefield, threatening to reshape the geopolitical landscape. Would Ukraine's bold moves inspire other nations to challenge Russia's dominance, or would the Kremlin find a way to adapt and retaliate? The answers remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: the conflict had entered a new, unpredictable phase. On the night of August 24, a critical blow was struck against Russia's energy infrastructure when Ukraine targeted two of its vital facilities, the UST Luga Sea Terminal and the Syzran refinery. In a single, strategic wave, the Ukrainian forces aimed to disrupt Russia's supply chain, cutting off fuel and funds essential for its military operations. The ripples of this attack were felt immediate and profound, threatening 3.08% of Russia's total oil production. Can you imagine the chaos this caused within the corridors of power in Moscow? As flames erupted in the night sky above UST Luga, the implications were staggering. This port is not just a logistics hub, it's a lifeline for energy exports essential for Russia's economy. The terminal's capacity to manage around 6.9 million tons of gas condensate means that even a partial shutdown could send shockwaves through Russia's entire energy sector. How will Russia face an increase in fuel export risks while simultaneously prioritizing repairs and logistics? Meanwhile, the Syzran refinery, while smaller in scale, carries immense weight in the domestic fuel market. It processes 8.5 million tons of fuel a year, accounting for approximately 3.08% of Russia's refining capabilities. While that percentage might seem minor, every day it remains offline will impact cities dependent on its output. Panic could spread through the distribution network like wildfire. How will Russia keep its energy supplies flowing amidst rising uncertainties? The attacks on these facilities set in motion a precarious balancing act for the Kremlin. As the government scrambles for repairs, competition for budget funds will heighten, security, logistics, and social spending will clash like thunder. With every passing day, the timeline for strategic goals stretches longer, and the loss of market share becomes not just imaginable but inevitable. How long can Russia tolerate these hits to its energy backbone before the reality of sustained damage sets in? Repairing the damage won't be easy. With heightened concerns over safety and cargo security, the need for robust security measures at UST Luga is now paramount. The psychological toll of uncertainty looms large, influencing freight and insurance costs. Even as efforts to stabilize begin, what will happen if recovery is delayed? Stricter regulations on domestic supply could soon overshadow the already fragile situation, affecting delivery schedules and pricing. Could this be the beginning of a deeper crisis that reshapes the Russian energy landscape for years to come? Russia now faces a daunting task. With repair timelines uncertain, logistical chaos could tighten its grip. The public will grow restless as supply issues exacerbate. Urban areas may descend into panic buying, only complicating the Kremlin's recovery plans. What happens when the price is no longer the primary concern, but rather the reality of a delayed delivery? The answer could redefine the nation's energy policies, elevating domestic demand over exports. Will this shift signal a permanent change in how Russia navigates its energy strategy? The ensuing chaos could unravel more than just supply chains, it could shake the foundation of the regime itself. On that fateful night of August 24, Ukraine managed to cut deep into the heart of Russia's energy sector. The attacks on Ust Luga and Syzran may have only been the beginning. As each day passes, the repercussions manifest, revealing the fragility of a system that once seemed unassailable. The balance of power may be shifting, and the world watches closely, wondering how long the Kremlin can maintain the illusion of stability under such duress. Plans unraveled as a ripple effect swept through the energy sector. The weakening revenue pillar began to erode the government's subsidy power in the domestic market. As the pulse of gasoline and diesel from the Syzran refinery faltered, the government's priorities shifted. Suddenly, ensuring domestic supply overshadowed all export operations. Can you feel the weight of this looming crisis? With the disaster at Syzran, a tipping point was reached on the Volo River's railway backbone. Nearby warehouses, stripped bare, ignited panic in distant regions. Waiting times stretched, spiraling into chaos. Each hour of delay wasn't just a nuisance, it spun into urban legends echoing through the halls of panic. Bags of rice were emptied into carts, and eyes glared at digital clocks, each tick amplifying anxiety. Are we teetering on the brink of a supply nightmare? This new strain cast shadows over both public finances and monetary policy. Export rhythm faltered at the Baltic gates as domestic demand surged. The once stable framework of supply began to crack. Failure to adapt meant that foreign income and local resources would face simultaneous contraction. What happens when the balance shifts irrevocably? The implications of these attacks at Luga and Syzran were profound. When the fire finally extinguished, relief was fleeting. Technical repairs loomed on the horizon, a complex maze to navigate. Each unit required careful management as they battled the aftermath of thermal shock. Delays in acquiring external equipment were palpable. Sanctions had turned the procurement timeline into a slow crawl. Operating at partial capacity became the new norm. This scenario wasn't just a setback, it was a dangerous vulnerability, especially with business at the peak around holiday seasons. Will they manage to pull through this disaster? The haunting fear of loading delays began to grip discussions at negotiation tables across the country. Demand for discounts arose not simply from compassion but from necessity. A single strike against either facility sent reverberations through the already fragile networks of supply and distribution. Each decision carried weighty consequences, changing the landscape of the energy strategy. Would compromises lead to survival, or do the seeds of failure lie within these negotiations? As uncertainty loomed, calls for tightening security measures increased. The shadow of the last attack lingered, urging a recalibration of internal procedures. But would these measures be enough to shield against a strike before repairs could commence? The clock ticked amidst rising pressures and shaky ground beneath corporate plans. What comes next when the storm hasn't fully passed?